episode of the Just Ballin' podcast. Today, we are going to be putting every single Western Conference team into basically a tier list. I'm going to just tier rank every team in the West, and this is going to be the first part of obviously a two-part podcast where the second part that you guys will probably see or listen to in a few days will be the Eastern Conference side of things. I think it's cool to break down these teams conference by conference just because that's who they're mostly going to be playing throughout the regular season. That's who they're going to be jockeying with throughout the regular season to get their playoff seeding. And I think both conferences we know are drastically different right now. We know how much the Western Conference is just kind of a juggernaut, given how competitive it was last year, especially where it was the final day of the regular season, and we had so many entertaining games between like the Lakers, the Warriors, the Clippers, all were trying to figure out where they were going to finish in the West, and I think it's going to be very similar this upcoming season, and there's not a lot of bad teams in the West. For the East too, we know how wide open it is, which I think we're going to find out that there's some really good teams, and I'll talk obviously more about the Eastern Conference side of things when we get to that episode of the pod. All right, so for you guys watching on YouTube, you can see the tiers that we have them ranked in, and for you guys on audio, the top tier is going to be finals contenders, so I do think your floor is probably round two. Like, that's where I think if you're healthy and nothing goes drastically wrong, that's where like the worst case scenario is going to be is like a round two loss. But I do think there's a solid chance you can make it to the Western Conference Finals, and then a chance you can win the NBA Finals. We have frisky Western Conference Finals, so I don't know. I guess last year that could have been like the Minnesota Timberwolves, given that they were the 6th seed going into the playoffs. I did predict them to make it to the Western Conference Finals, but I think in years past, like maybe the 2024 Pacers, even the 2025 Pacers, that you could have had them there because everybody thought it was a two-man race in the East between the Cavs and the Celtics, but then there could be a team that's on the just the fringy Western Conference Finals team. And then we have a bunch of fringe tiers as well. We have a fringe top 6 seed or a play-in. So I think last year you could have had the Clippers in there. You could have had the Timberwolves in there. You could have still had the Memphis Grizzlies, who ended up as the 8th seed in the West, or you can have like the Golden State Warriors. So, hey, it may come down to the final week. It really comes down to how healthy you are, and the trade deadline can change everything. But I think your probably range is like 4 seed, 5 seed, 6 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed, something like that. But you can make it out of the play-in as well. And then I have fringe play-in, but probably not going to make it out of the play-in tournament. So we're going to have teams that are going to finish maybe 9, 10, 11, and 12 in the standings that I think could be in that tier or in that spot towards the end of the year. You can make it into the play-in tournament. I don't think you're going to make it out of the play-in. I guess last year that could have ended up being just like the Sacramento Kings, the Dallas Mavericks, we know, but they were banged up at times. And then lastly, we have two more. We have no play-in, but not the worst. So I don't think that you're going to end up as a top 10 seed, and I'd be confident, but I do think you can still at least be competitive. And then we have 15 seed contention, which I'm not sure how many teams we're going to have in that one. I know there's definitely going to be one, and you can probably guess who. So I'll go back and forth kind of listing what these teams did this offseason. We're going to start off with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and this is an easy one. The Oklahoma City Thunder are clear finals contenders. They're probably the betting odds favorite to win the NBA Finals next year. I know they have to go through a loaded Western Conference, which got better this offseason, but we knew that this team was going to have at least a clear 2-year window starting from last year's season with this core. Now, this time next year, who knows if Lou Dort's going to be here, Caruso, Hartenstein, we'll get there when we get there, but they were able to bring back everybody this offseason. They traded away Dylan Jones to the Wizards. They brought in Thomas Sorber, Brooks Barnhizer in the draft. Nikola Topic, who was a lottery pick last year, is getting healthy, and he's looked the part in Summer League. And they extended all their guys, right? Like Shea got a massive extension. Chet and J-Dub got those rookie max extensions. AJ Mitchell got a new 3-year deal for somebody that was a second-round pick. And Jay Will also got an extension. So this team is all coming back. They won 68 games last year in the regular season. They did not have the easiest path, or at least the easiest time getting to the finals. Like, yeah, it was no competition against Memphis, although games 3 and 4 were competitive. They did end up beating Minnesota in game 5 in 5 games, and game 3 still is just kind of crazy to look back on that blowout in the Terrence Shannon Jr. game. But yeah, the Nuggets could have beaten them. They took them to game 7, and they were up 3-2. And also, or I forgot. I think they were up 3-2, but I don't know why I'm forgetting that already. And Aaron Gordon got hurt in game 6, and he was not able to play, or at least be at full strength. He did play game 7 and was incredible, like resilience from him. And then Michael Porter Jr. was banged up as well in that series, and they couldn't really trust Julian Strawther, Peyton Watson. I know Strawther had his moments, but OKC had a tough time getting past Denver, but they did. They made light work of the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then, honestly, we thought they were going to make light work of the Indiana Pacers, and it went to a Game 7. And in my opinion, I thought Indiana was going to win if Halliburton didn't get hurt. They were just playing at such an elite level, and everything was clicking for them, especially they having the momentum from Game 6. But OKC had the best defense in the NBA last year. They're, I guess, technically getting better. Like, you're swapping out Nikola Topic in, Dylan Jones out, and Dylan Jones did have some like garbage time minutes last year. This was a very deep team. I thought maybe they would trade away Kenrich Williams. That could happen, but he's still on this team. They have 10, 11, 12 guys. They have incredible depth. They have the picks if they need to make an aggressive move at the deadline. But what their defense is with Kaysen Wallace, Caruso, and Dort, and even what J-Dub and Chet are defensively, you have elite shooting at times between Isaiah Joe, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Chet is an elite shooting big man in that sphere right now, and this team is well coached by Mark Daigneault. They have the continuity, they have the chemistry. This is an easy one, right? Like, you can make a good argument they're in a tier of their own going into next year's season, but it's really tough because it's not like they're the 2016 Warriors. Now you can make an argument, or the 2017-18 Warriors with Kevin Durant. Now you can make an argument this team could put up a good fight against them, but I also think when you're looking at the rest of the West, it's a lot more competitive. Like, the biggest test to like those Golden State teams were obviously like the Houston Rockets with Chris Paul and James Harden, specifically in that 2018 season where they ended up going to the conference finals and Chris Paul gets hurt. But I think it's a little bit more competitive against OKC, where I don't think, like, yes, they are the favorite to win the West, but I wouldn't bet like my life savings on it. Like, I would have given you 100% certainty, honestly, that Golden State would make it to the NBA Finals a year before that. And that's what ended up happening in 17 and 18. And those teams were just so dominant, even 2019, where they swept Portland in the conference finals without Kevin Durant. So I think OKC is the favorite, and they should be. And I believe in that, but I don't think it's 100% guarantee they're making it to the finals next year. There is a clear path for them to lose to a couple teams that we're going to have maybe in their tier. Maybe they're the only finals contenders I have, but it's tough how I want to like break these out right now. And next up, we'll have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Okay, this is an interesting team because this is a team that I feel like we gotta respect because they've gone to 2 conference finals in a row. They are a team that had some question marks this offseason, right? Like, they ended up having to make a decision who they were going to keep, who they were going to have to eventually walk because they were a second apron squad. They got in those talks with Kevin Durant, and I think they were dangling Rudy Gobert. But it was tough to pull it off because both of those teams were in the second apron. So they brought back Joe Ingles on a 1-year deal. They re-signed Julius Randle, somebody that could have opted out, but they kind of benefited from not a lot of teams having cap space out there. So they were able to bring back Randle on a 3-year deal. That's honestly a good market value for the way he played in the playoffs, who kind of turned around his playoff reputation after some stinkers with the Knicks in 2021 and 2023. They brought back Naz Reid on a 5-year deal, around $25-ish million per year, which I thought was a good value. Now, Naz Reid has been outperforming his market value, like for $12 million, $13 million for the last few years. We'll see if he can live up to $25 million a year. And they did lose Nickeil Alexander-Walker to the Hawks, Luka Garza and Josh Minott to the Boston Celtics. They did bring in 2 big men in the NBA draft. They drafted Johan Berenger and Rocco Zikarsky in the first and second round. I think it was wise for this team to either add point guard depth or center depth in the draft, and they ended up going for some center depth. They're a team that has their star player in Anthony Edwards. They have some really good role players around Anthony Edwards, like Naz Reid, like Dante DiVincenzo. I mean, Jaden McDaniels isn't a role player, but he's a perfect complementary guy defensively and now offensively. Like, he had a really good stretch last year on that end of the floor. Like it or not, Rudy Gobert is still one of the best defensive big men in the NBA. I don't know how much production they're going to get out of Mike Conley this year. I think the ceiling for the Timberwolves, like, with the modern CBA and how much you need these first-round picks or second-round picks to hit, like, it's a big year, too, for Rob Dillingham and Terrence Shannon Jr. And if I had to guess who's going to have more of an impact next year, it's probably Terrence Shannon Jr. He's a couple years older than Rob Dillingham. He looked the part in Summer League. He had that Game 3 performance against OKC. He had his moments down the stretch last year. And they need somebody to fill the void of Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Now, will that be Terrence Shannon Jr.? Will that be Jalen Clark? I think both of those guys could be on the table for somebody that can really impact the team next year in that way, because Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a good three-point shooter in the regular season, a little bit volatile in the playoffs. So for them, I think I got to put them in the frisky Western Conference Finals. I do feel like they're a tier behind OKC, and we saw that on display in the conference finals. Minnesota, you could say technically, could get better by internal development. I don't know how much Berenger, or definitely not Zikarsky, is really going to make much of an impact for them next year, given their ages and their experience coming overseas. I just think like OKC stayed the same, maybe getting better, right? Like you basically swapped out, I said Dylan Jones for Nikola Topic. You added Thomas Sorberg for some big man depth. You added Brooks Barnheiser. And Barnheiser and Sorber, we'll see how NBA ready he is. But like Barnheiser is more NBA ready than like potentially Berenger, even though Berenger has a by far higher ceiling and probably will be a much better player when it's all said and done. But I think Minnesota technically maybe got worse on the margin, but I think the internal development of Terrence Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham, and at least the production Berenger can give you next year. I don't know if there's somebody on this team that will take a leap. I don't know if this is the ceiling of Naz Reid right now. Can McDaniels take that leap? I don't think so. I think we kind of know what they are right now. And is there another leap for Anthony Edwards? Or is this going to be the player he is, which is still a top 10 player in the league? But can he become as impactful as a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or maybe like a peak Luka Doncic that we saw in Dallas? We'll see. I think they're a frisky Western Conference Finals. They made it the last 2 years, so you got to respect them in that department. But I just feel like they're a tier behind OKC, especially what we saw in the Western Conference Finals, which there were some close games, but it did feel like a one-sided affair, given how good OKC's defense was. So next up we have, I don't want to do like too many of the top tier teams. I think these are in kind of like standings order from last year. The way, shout out Hoops Goat or Hoop Goat, which is the website I'm using for this tier list. We'll talk about the, let's do like the Memphis Grizzlies next, right? A Memphis Grizzlies team that made a bunch of different moves in the offseason. They started off, I don't know where I'm going to put them yet, but I just kind of want to read what ended up happening, which kind of was an impactful offseason for them. So the Memphis Grizzlies ended up doing a lot. So they re-signed Santi Aldama, who I think was in some rumors that he could end up leaving. Could he get the full mid-level? It's a descending contract. I liked it for Memphis. They reworked Jaren Jackson Jr.'s contract as well, giving him a pay raise for next year and then giving him a massive 5-year extension. And there's already a turf toe injury or an injury that he has right now that's going to hold him out for maybe the start of the regular season. They gave Cam Spencer a new guaranteed deal. They ended up making a massive trade to kind of kickstart the offseason. This happened on Father's Day, a week before the finals even ended, where they traded Desmond Bane to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. They ended up getting Cole Anthony, who they eventually bought out, and then he signed with the Milwaukee Bucks. They ended up also getting in that trade a bunch of first-round picks. One of them they used to trade up with Portland on draft night to select Cedric Howard out of Washington State. We didn't get to see him in the summer league because of an injury, so I'm still super intrigued to see Cedric Howard next year. Fits the Memphis Grizzlies analytical fold. He's somebody that did not play a lot last year because of an injury at Washington State, which helped him out a ton because of the unknown and what we saw in that 5-6 game sample size. So we'll see how he's going to be next year. They're going to try to replace Desmond Bane in the aggregate with Jalen Wells getting more playing time. They still have G.G. Jackson, Vince Williams, Cedric Howard in the fold. They lost Luke Kennard to the Atlanta Hawks on a 1-year deal. They traded Jay Huff to Indiana. They waived Zion Pullen. They also brought in Jock Landale, who you can say is pretty lateral of a move from Jay Huff. Doesn't give you as much of shooting, but I think a little bit better as an inside presence. And then they also brought in Ty Jerome for less than the mid-level, around $9 million a year. I'm not sure what the Grizzlies' plan is next year because this is a team that's still a good roster, right? Like it's by far from like a bottom feeder or a 15 seed contention team in the West. They have a ton of guard depth, which I think they wanted because of Ja's injury history over the last few years, right? Now they have Scottie Pippen Jr., they have Ty Jerome, and they also drafted Javon Small. I don't know if there's somebody else that I'm completely missing off the top of my head right now that's a guard, but they have really good guard depth right now. And yeah, you got Wells, you got good wing depth. We'll see how Zach Edey could be in year 2. We'll see if Brandon Clark could be healthy over the course of the season. But this is a team right now, even adding KCP, who's still a fine player in this league, a fine role player. Is he worth $20 million? No. But is he still a good wing option? Yeah, he's still a good wing depth by far. This team is very fascinating because John Morant was so good when they went to the new head coach after firing Taylor Jenkins late in the year. And he looked like night and day from the first half. This team, they have like the worst injury luck. Like Zach Edey got hurt. He could miss the start of next year. G.G. Jackson got hurt last year and missed the start of last year's season. So kind of year 2 was a wash for him, but still an intriguing player. Jalen Wells got injured late in the year, but I'm glad he looked good in summer league. And we'll see how much time Jaren Jackson Jr. misses as well. I think they're a fringe play-in team, but I don't think they end up becoming a top 8 seed. Would I be totally shocked if this is a 4 seed? You know what? No, I wouldn't be compared to some of these other teams, but I do think where they are right now, we got to see, the health of this team throughout the course of the year. They're going to lose the shooting of Desmond Bane, but I don't think that should affect their win-loss total too much. They were like a 2 seed for most of the middle part of the year last year, so this is far from a bad team. I kind of want to actually say there, like, I kind of could get on the Memphis Grizzlies train. I mean, I've trusted what Zach Kleeman and this front office has done. I thought Taylor Jenkins was a good coach that I guess it just, it ran its course with Ja, Bane, and Triple J. I like the Grizzlies, man. They're a deep team, and I think they could withstand injuries. Now, if Ja gets hurt, I mean, Ty Jerome and Scottie Pippen Jr. is not the worst plan B and contingency plan. And they didn't end up trading away like a Jaren Jackson Jr. or a John Morant. Like, I don't think that was really on the cards. I love them getting Jemai Meshack in the second round as well. I don't know. I kind of like Memphis going forward. And I may say that they're a fringe top 6 team or a play-in. I think so. Like, I think there's a chance. I think I'm going to be kind of bought in a little bit on Memphis. Because when Ja, like, the way he played in the second half last year was a top 25 player in the league. And Jaren Jackson Jr., maybe isn't going to take that leap offensively, but this man won DPOY in 2023? He was still an all defensive guy last year, and now you have so much wing depth and switchability. Now, if John Morant is having an off night, can you trust Jaren Jackson Jr. in isolation? Can you trust somebody else to step up? I think I'm buying the Memphis Grizzlies next year in a way right now. I'll see if I bump them down, but I think it's a good roster. So next up, we'll talk about, let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings are a team that, I mean, I don't think next year is going to end up being the best year for them. We could see this team looking a lot different after the deadline. They just recently signed Doug McDermott. They signed Drew Eubanks. They brought in Dennis Schroeder on a 3-year deal, over $40 million. Didn't love that dollar value, but on the bright side, it does have a non-guarantee for the final year. They traded away Jonas Valanciunas for Dario Saric just to free money. I didn't love their big man depth as it is, so I wasn't the biggest fan of that. They lost Jake Oravia, who I thought they should have signed in free agency, and they've had a good draft so far, right? So Nick Clifford and Maxime Reynal both stood out in Summer League. Nick Clifford made an all-Summer League team. I think it was first team, and he looked the part. I loved him coming out of Colorado State. I think the pick they gave up, it was that basically top 16 protected Spurs picking 27. Yeah, I would give that up for Nick Clifford any day of the week. I mean, the one thing, though, is that Nick Clifford is NBA ready now, and I don't know. I think what you're getting Nick Clifford on this late first round pick value, the most value he's ever going to have in his career right now, I think, are these next 4 years under this very bargain contract where he got drafted at 24. And I just don't know if Sacramento is going to be a contending team throughout then. I mean, they have 2 years left of DeRozan. You have basically 2 years left of the Schroeder contract. You have 2 years left of Malik Monk. You have 2 years left of Zach LaVine. They can kind of reset everything in 2 years, but that's a long 2 years. And I think when you're looking up in the West, they don't really stack up well against some of these teams. Now, post-deadline, they were actually pretty competitive, even after trading away De'Aaron Fox. But then Sabonis gets hurt late in the year, and they didn't obviously make it out of the play-in tournament. They lost to Dallas in the 9-10 matchup. But I don't know, man. Like, there's been a lot of Zach LaVine propaganda on Twitter this offseason because he's somebody that looks so effortless. Like, he makes it look so smooth out there, but you kind of watch him just have the lack of consistency. I think the lack of, like, creativity and separation over a consistent 5-game sample size. Like, this man could have the best 3-game stretch you could see on great efficiency. And there's times where he's not getting to his spots. He's a little bit passive. He's not as aggressive. And obviously is sometimes a liability defensively. So I like the talent that Sacramento has. And Domantas Sabonis was another All-NBA guy. He's a monster rebounder, but I think they don't have that guy in crunch time. Although DeMar DeRozan, like, was still a very good player for them last year. I'm going to say that they're a fringe play-in team, but not top 8. I don't think that they should end up there. I don't know. The Kings are a tough team right now. I think I'm being maybe a little too optimistic for them. I think they could end up as a 9, 10, or 11 seed next year. I think that's going to be their range, and that's not where you want to be. I think this is a good roster, and I'm really excited about Devin Carter being healthy because he did not have a good rookie year because of the shoulder injury, and he looked great and looked the part in Summer League. The shot was falling. I like Keon Ellis a ton. I wonder if they would sell higher on him at one point because there's a little redundancy in that backcourt. I liked Isaac Jones in Summer League as well. I think he's an underrated player that could be a solid depth piece for them going forward. So we'll see what this Kings team ends up doing. But I am excited to at least watch them next year, and I'm excited about right now. But if there's a Sabonis injury, they could end up becoming 14 seed out of nowhere. Let's talk about Denver. Denver right now, I'm not sure. I think they are finals contenders because you could look at this team that they were the best suited team to go up against the Thunder. And I don't know how much you can buy into it, but Isaiah Hartenstein said, I think it was on Paul George's podcast, I saw it on Twitter, that they were by far more scared of Denver than Indiana because of the Jokic factor, who is, in my opinion, the best player in the NBA. And you could say Denver got better this offseason. So they're not going to be bringing back Russell Westbrook, but there was kind of not addition by subtraction, but they traded Michael Porter Jr. and that future unprotected first that it's in 2032. Jokic will be 37. Who cares? This is the best time of Jokic's career. You need to fill out this roster in a way to maximize this window with Jokic. So they were able to get Cam Johnson, who I think is in the ballpark of Michael Porter Jr. I think if they were both making $20 million, you can make an argument you'd rather have MPJ, but he's been in the league since he was drafted 2018. Kind of know his ceiling at this point. I think Cam Johnson, way more passive, better playmaker. I think there's more movement with him in the half court offensively. And I think he's a better defender than Michael Porter Jr. And him basically making half the price of Michael Porter Jr. Allowed you to get Bruce Brown, allowed you to get Tim Hardaway Jr., but mainly allowed you to trade away Dario Saric for Jonas Valanciunas without having to give up any draft capital. Did we watch Dario Saric last year? It was not good for Denver. And Jonas Valanciunas is far from what he's been at his peak, but he's still a reliable big man and maybe the most reliable big man for Denver. I think Christian Brown looked the part last year as well. He could have won Most Improved. Julian Strawther had his moments in the playoffs. Heck, if Peyton Watson can kind of rework his shot this offseason, if he could shoot 35% from three, which isn't asking a ton, maybe it is, but he's such a good defender where that could be very valuable in an 8 to 12 minute stretch in a playoff series. And how about De'Ron Holmes, who looked as healthy as ever, basically a year after tearing his Achilles, and his three-point shot was falling, which has to get you excited for being a Nuggets fan. You have Jamal Murray, who we know could be a playoff riser. You have Aaron Gordon, who looked great last year shooting the ball and was great against OKC, the team that you want to beat in the Western Conference playoffs last year. And then you also have, or that might be it, right? But the problem is for Denver is their rotation was so thin in the playoffs, and they were basically trotting out like a 6.5-man rotation, and Michael Porter Jr. was hurt in that 6-man rotation. And now we have Tim Hardaway Jr. and Bruce Brown, who worked in Denver in 23 around Jokic, who's now going to be healthy, which he hasn't really been over the last few years. As you're like 9th, 10th man, 11 guys in your rotation. This is a very deep Nuggets roster. And I'm excited about Denver next year. I do think they're a tier 1 team in the West. And I think they're the best team to go up against OKC because they have Nikola Jokic. And I think they are finals contenders, something we thought they could have been back in 24. They lost game 7 to Minnesota, which still shocks me today. And then they ended up losing in round 2 to OKC last year, which a lot of people were off Denver, right? They fired Mike Malone. David Adelman, I think, did a very good job down the stretch. They didn't have a GM either. And I think Denver has definitely done well this offseason. What could have been a complete opposite, right? Could they have not made any moves and ran most of this team back and kind of try to avoid the luxury tax? And now you're like, all right, we don't want to pay Christian Brown. We'll see what that extension looks like if it happens this offseason. But I really do like Denver a ton going forward. So we'll talk about the LA Lakers next, where there are still moves to be made for this team for sure, but they have done a lot over the last week or so. They ended up bringing back Jackson Hayes on a 1-year deal. I think he waived his no-trade clause, but he had that option. They brought in DeAndre Ayton on the buyout market, he gets bought out, not the buyout market, but he gets bought out by Portland. He's a free agent. They get him on a 2-year deal. They bring in Jake LaRavia. I like that pickup. I like what I saw from him in Sacramento towards the end of the year. And recently, the Washington Wizards bought out Marcus Smart, so they used their tax-paying exception for him and got him on a 2-year deal. They had to waive Jordan Goodwin, waive Trey Jameson, waive Shake Milton. Dorian Finney-Smith left for nothing in free agency. Well, they were able to work out that 17-team trade. They brought in a Dude Theroux in the draft. I love that for them. I thought it was great value. He was one of the best perimeter defenders, one of the best athletes in this class. I'm not sure how much of an impact he'll make next year and how much JJ Redick will rely on him. We'll see how Dalton Connect looks. He was not good in Summer League, and he's 24. So this is going to be a big year for Dalton Connect, especially a big, I think, first couple months. Jared Vanderbilt should be as healthy as ever. Could they get anything out of Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleba? They recently brought back Christian Koloko, who can hopefully be healthy. And then there's still Rui Hashimura on this team. I think, and I'm not sure we're going to see much Bronny in impact moments next year. But you have LeBron James who opted in, and there was so much speculation that he could end up getting traded. What's this looking like this offseason? Is he pressuring the Lakers? There's a chance that he ends up, I think, a realistic opportunity is, I don't know. I don't know what he would want. I think it really depends if next year is his last year. I don't think it will be. I think he'll try to play one more year. We'll see how Bryce James looks at Arizona. It's still TBD on that, right? I think there's two scenarios here. LeBron and the Lakers could be like a 9 seed. Like a close 6 seed, but like a 9 seed, right? Like it's not that far apart, but LeBron could be looking at the West, and it's a clear like tier 1 of Denver, OKC, and a couple others. And it's like, all right, we're not beating them in the playoffs. can I get bought out? I'm a free agent at the end of the year. I'm probably leaving you guys anyway. Do me a favor. I helped you win a title, finals MVP in 2020. Buy me out. He ends up going to like Cleveland, right? On the buyout market. Or he ends up going to, I don't know, Dallas, whatever. It doesn't really matter. That could be a scenario that ends up happening. Or this is just LeBron's last year in LA. He ends up spending the 2020, I don't know, 7th season with Cleveland, right? And he could try to win a title. And what is his last year where it all started? Obviously, that would be really cool and poetic. So, possibilities galore. I think the Lakers, I don't really think they got that much worse this offseason. You can make an argument they got better. Like, their front court was so bad in their rim protection in the playoffs where it was a disaster. JJ Redick had to play LeBron like 45 minutes a night there. Now, I don't think their rim protection got better this offseason, at least right now, because I think the main guy is probably Jared Vanderbilt as a rim protector for you next year, because I don't love DeAndre Ayton's rim protection. He's an offensive guy that should get a bump playing with Reeves, LeBron, and Luka. I mean, Christian Coloco, we'll see. I mean, you're probably asking a lot out of him. You're not getting any defensive production, in my opinion, out of Maxi Kleber. There could be some moments for Jackson Hayes, but I'd rather Jackson Hayes be my 3rd or 4th string center than the top 2. So we're going to see how this team looks. They still have like Gabe Vincent and Maxi Kleber's expirings, where, hey, at the deadline, there could be a big man. Maybe there's a Robert Williams trade to the Lakers, right? And it's expiring, a second round swap, something like that. So the Lakers did have to trade away a couple seconds last year to get Dorian Finney-Smith, who I guess in hindsight, not a great trade. He left for nothing, but I like the Jake LaRavia pickup. I think this is still a deep roster, and I think getting Marcus Smart helps out a ton with their guard depth, because I think there's a lot of variance in Gabe Vincent. You're asking a lot out of Bronny or Duthero, I think, next year. But hey, if Marcus Smart can just give you like 60 healthy games next year, it could at least be like 31% from 3. I'm taking that perimeter point of attack defense, which they desperately need, because you're not getting that out of LeBron, Reeves, or Luka. And if you have a center out there like Vanderbilt or Aiden, they're not of a point of attack defender. So you need somebody like Jake LaRavia to take a leap defensively. I don't think you're getting that from Rui. So you're probably asking that from either Jake LaRavia, but now Marcus Smart, who I think can fit in well there. And I wonder what JJ Redick will do. Will he start Marcus Smart and bench Reeves and have him be like the pseudo 6-man? He can still play 35 minutes a night, but I think there is some creativity there. I think the Lakers are probably a fringe top 6 seed or a playing team right now. I don't think they're a tier 2 team in the West. Like I said, I don't think they got worse this offseason, but I didn't really take them seriously as a conference finals team. And hey, now we got a whole offseason with Luka in LA, but you're asking so much out of a 41 LeBron in December that who knows, man, how his body can hold up as a 41-year-old. How is Reeves going to look whole season with Luka? It could be great. I'm really intrigued how this team looks. I think they have a ton of variance in the West. I'm scared if there's a Luka injury, how they can look, which Luka was hurt last year for Dallas, but if he gets more in shape this offseason, it could be fun. I think on the margin, like, you basically lost DFS and you added Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia, DeAndre Ayton. Like, the Lakers got better. I think there could still be a trade to be made. I don't think they're going to move Reeves. I don't know if I want to put them in fringe top 6 seed. I think it's like early August that Luka can sign the extension. The Lakers front office was a little bit nervous about that, but it does feel like after he pushed for Marcus Smart and Ayton, there's kind of an understanding that he can re-sign with them on that 3-year deal with the opt-out in year 3. So I don't know. Then I'm like looking at them in Memphis, and I do think they're better than Memphis, but do I think they're in the same tier? Maybe. Like, I think the Lakers could be a 5 or 6 seed, and I think Memphis, like, fringe top 6 or like a 7 or 8. Maybe Memphis is, I don't know. We'll go back to that. Like, I think Memphis is better than Sacramento. Because you can make an argument Memphis got better this offseason. So I'll go back to Memphis, how I see this shape out. Let's talk about the other LA team, the LA Clippers, who have been in the news a ton as of late, right? Because the LA Clippers ended up being very creative this offseason and kind of lucky in a way. Like, Bradley Beal getting bought out was very lucky for them. Chris Paul ends up wanting to play near LA. And hey, he was good last year. He played all 82 games. It's funny because they're the oldest team. They signed Chris Paul and their age goes up. So they re-signed Nick Batum, re-signed James Harden. They got Bradley Beal, who got waived on a 1+1. They brought in John Collins for Norman Powell, and then trading away Norman Powell for John Collins helps out the front court depth, at least offensively. And now you just basically replace Norman Powell with Bradley Beal. You brought in Brook Lopez, who I think in a scaled down role, 15 minutes a night, is going to look a lot better than what he was doing last year, playing 30 minutes a night for the Bucks. Powell leaves. They waived Drew Eubanks, and they drafted Yannick Niederhauser, who didn't look great in summer league. I'm not sure how much he'll play. They're probably going to lose Amir Coffey. Amir Coffey isn't on the roster. I don't know why the NBA website has him there, but I don't think, Kobe Sanders is doing much. They have Bogdan Bogdanovic is like kind of intriguing expiring contract. You got Cam Christie, you got Chris Dunn still. Derek Jones Jr. was a great defender. This is a good roster. This is a team that went to Game 7 against Denver, who went to Game 7 against OKC, and that's what people could see the upside there, because I thought the Clippers at one point in the second half were like, if they didn't get Denver in round 1 and they got on the other side of the bracket and they were playing Golden State, Houston, LA, or Minnesota, I think there was a good chance they were playing the Thunder in the conference finals and not the Minnesota Timberwolves. You have so much, I think, variance with this roster, given Kawhi Leonard's age and health, given Harden's age, given Beal's health, given Chris Paul's age. Like, Brook Lopez is 37 years old, right? So, like, these guys here, they're injury prone or old. And yeah, this team was in 2019. They'd be a fantastic roster, but we're in 2026 next year at one point. So I think the Clippers I think they're a tier 2 team in the West. I do think Bradley Beal is, I guess, maybe underrated. Like, Bradley Beal at $50 million, not good value whatsoever. He's not going to help you defensively. There's too many health issues and consistently being available for you out there. And how can he be as a connected piece? But Bradley Beal making like $6 million is an absolute steal, and he's still a good player, still an elite shooter in this league. And I think is slight upgrade from Norman Powell. I do think he's better than Norman Powell. And I do think now, with this team having a little bit more offensive depth, with them adding John Collins, them going from Powell to Beal, and I think now you can allow Kawhi Leonard, like, hey, don't play back-to-backs, give us 60, 55 good regular season games, and let's get you healthy for the playoffs, where he was still inconsistent against Denver. But I like this team a lot. I don't know if I would have put them in finals contenders, but I do think that they're a team that, hey, if they're in the Western Conference Finals in a year from now, not surprised whatsoever. If they win the NBA Finals, hey, then I think everything went well, everybody stayed healthy, and maybe they made a move or two at the deadline, because they do have the Derek Jones Jr., decently tradable contract. They're not in the second apron from what I know right now, so they can kind of be creative at the deadline. They do have a 2033 first they can move, 2032, 2031 swaps. They have some picks they can move. They want to be super aggressive. And like I said, like Bogdan Bogdanovic is $16 million. There's a clear 2-year window with this team, right? And I didn't even mention Ivica Zubac, who's like an all-defensive player or caliber player and an all-NBA caliber player last year, right? So this is a really good roster. It could be a disaster if Kawhi misses 60 games next year or Harden gets hurt, because he's been available. You never know. But I think if everything goes well, and I do like this Clippers team. I do a lot. Next up, we'll talk about the Dallas Mavericks, a team with so much variance next year. I think they're probably a tier 3 West. Like, this Dallas team is good. I don't know if they're better than the Lakers. I think because, like, who can you trust next year, which is a crazy conversation? A 41-year-old LeBron to be healthy, or Anthony Davis, who's almost a decade younger than LeBron, but has a far more serious injury history than LeBron. Kyrie's going to miss the first, like, couple months of the season. Hey, guard off an ACL tear. If I can get 80% of Kyrie, I'll be very happy. But I do think that there's a very good chance that Kyrie is not going to look the same, at least next year. They brought back Dante Exum. They brought in D'Lo to be that point guard, that bridge point guard until Kyrie gets back. They reworked, or they extended Daniel Gafford. They lost Dinwiddie to the Hornets, but they did just add the best player in the NBA draft in Cooper Flagg, who can be an impact player for them next year. You have Max Christie as a good depth wing piece that had his moments after the Luka trade. You have Jaden Hardy, who had his moments last year before he got hurt. You have Derek Lively, who's still a very good young big man in this league, that I want to see him out there for 50 games with Anthony Davis. I really want to see that. You have Brandon Williams, who showed moments in the second half. And then you bring in Ryan Hamart, undrafted. I think there's somebody, or PJ Washington, right? PJ Washington, I thought could get moved this offseason. Not sure why he's not on NBA's listed roster right now. You have Caleb Martin as well, like Najee Marshall. Yeah, they really need to update this website for NBA.com, but there's so much wing depth that I just listed. And Klay Thompson, right? Like, there is so much wing depth and creativity they could make with a trade. It sucks Kyrie tore his ACL, and hey, domino effect, right? Kyrie doesn't tear his ACL. Maybe they don't get Cooper Flagg, but who cares at this point? This is the roster. They have a good one. Yeah, it sucks they traded away Quentin Grimes for Caleb Martin, but once again, the domino effect, butterfly effect, if that doesn't happen, maybe ping pong balls don't go their way and they get Cooper Flagg, who I think you're asking a little bit too much to be like a season saver for them. Oh man, like I think Dallas has a better chance at winning the NBA Finals next year than the Lakers, but I think there's a safer chance that the Lakers just have it all together. You can trust Luka, LeBron, and Reeves more than you can trust Cooper Flagg, AD, and Kyrie, given Kyrie's injury right now. Cooper Flagg being 18 years old at the start of the year, and AD's injury history. So, like, I trust like, who's going to be a better player in 2025? Just 2026, Reeves or Cooper Flag? I mean, defensively, Cooper Flag is going to be great, but I think offensively, Reeves will be better, at least just next year. Obviously, Flag has a much higher ceiling. I think they're a fringe top 6 seed. Oh, man. This is where it gets difficult. You know what I think I'm going to do? Because I do think I like them better than Memphis. I am going to drop Memphis to the Sacramento tier. I may even drop Sacramento to the no play-in. But for right now, I think Memphis is a fringe play-in team, but probably not a top 8. And I think Dallas is a fringe top 6 seed or a play-in. But I think they have such a high ceiling and such a low floor, given if AD gets hurt, Cooper Flag is 18 and you're asking too much, but I love the depth on this roster. So next up, we could talk about the Houston Rockets, who I do believe, man, it's either they're tier 2 or tier 1, right? Because this was a team that was a 2 seed last year, and they just added maybe one of the greatest scorers of all time in Kevin Durant, who, hey, is going to be older next year, is going to be, 37 years old, 38 years old. Either way, they were very active this offseason. They re-signed Steven Adams, re-signed Aaron Holiday, Jeff Green, Jayshawn Tate, reworked the deal with Fred VanVleet. They gave Jabari Smith Jr. a 5-year extension. They just signed Josh Okogie, who's a good perimeter defender, not great offensively. They signed Dorian Finney-Smith, that realistically has 2 years. They, like I said, got Kevin Durant, which may be the most impactful move this offseason. They brought in Clint Capella on a 3-year deal. And you lose Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, Jock Landale, and Cam Whitmore. But you have a 23-year-old all-star center in Alperen Sengun. You have Amen Thompson, who has maybe as high of a ceiling as any young player in this league, outside of a few at the top of like Wemby and maybe Anthony Edwards, that are like under 25. And yeah, Cade and Paolo. Like, he's in that like tier 2 guys that you would take starting a roster right now because of the athleticism, the defensive playmaking, and we'll see if his shot will get any better this offseason. And this is a 2 seed, like I said, and you're basically swapping Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green with Kevin Durant and Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, that is a massive upgrade. You have good big man depth if Steven Adams doesn't want to play back-to-backs. You have Reed Shepherd, who's going to play more next year. You have Tari Eason, an all-defensive caliber defender. This is such a deep roster. They did trade away Cam Whitmore. I love it. I think they're a tier 1 team in the West. I think they're better than Minnesota. I think the Clippers are better than Minnesota. I just trust, like, I think it's, the Rockets have a higher floor. I trust Amen Thompson and Alperen Sengun. Even if Kevin Durant only plays 60 games, this roster is deep enough, young enough, and I think well-balanced enough that it can stay alive if Kevin Durant gets hurt. I do think the Clippers can stay alive if Kawhi gets hurt. They stayed alive last year when Kawhi was hurt, and this roster is better. I just can trust Amen, Sengun, and Eason, who are proven at least as young guys, than like the proven complementary pieces in Los Angeles, because who knows, right? When it rains, it could pour. The Clippers are a great roster. I think I'm just trusting the internal development because the Clippers are a deep team. And I think the Clippers are closer to the finals contenders tier than the fringe top 6 are playing. But man, this is a goddamn loaded conference. Oh my God. So right now in tier 1, I got the Thunder, Nuggets, and Rockets. Tier 2, I got the Clippers and Timberwolves. Tier 3, I have the Lakers and Mavericks. Tier 4, I have the Grizzlies and the Kings. Let's talk about a bottom tier team next year. I do have the Utah Jazz in this tier. I think they may be the only team I have in 15 seed contention, which is okay. I think that's what the Jazz are kind of going for next year. This is a Jazz team that bought out Jordan Clarkson. They ended up trading John Collins for basically Kyle Anderson, Kevin Love in a second. They ended up, what else did they do this offseason? They traded Colin Sexton for Yusuf Nurkic. Sure, that was really head-scratching, and they gave up a second in that deal. They waived Johnny Juzang, but they did draft Ace Bailey. They drafted Walter Clayton. They drafted John Tonje. There's going to be, I think, a year 3 leap maybe for Bryce Sensabaugh, who looked like a star before Vegas Summer League as a shooter. You have Keontae George. You have Isaiah Collier. You have the Summer League MVP, Kyle Filipowski, and he looked phenomenal in Summer League and definitely performed well for a second-round pick rookie last year. You have Walker Kessler, who's a great defensive center. You have Lauri Markkanen, who had a down year last year, but hey, they gave him a max contract for a reason. He was so good in 2023 and 2024. You have Taylor Hendricks, who was a former top 10 pick coming back healthy. Cody Williams can't be much worse than what he was last year as well. This is a very deep young core. Do we have a ton of quality in the young core? Not yet, but I think next year, like I said, Sensabaugh could take a leap. Filipowski could take a leap. I think Kessler is definitely a quality piece. Ace Bailey can most definitely be a blue chip franchise changer for this team. And Will Hardy's a great young coach. He is. And I know he hasn't like been to the playoffs or the play-in yet, but I trust Will Hardy. I buy into everything he says. And I believe in the process for this team that maybe, hey, they have no urgency, I think, to make the playoffs next year. I think you're fine with the 15 seed. But if Ace looks the part, if Sensabaugh, George, Collar, somebody like that could take a leap as well, or maybe it's Walter Clayton, I think this team is going to be perfectly suited for a 2027 leap. Now, I think next year the West is too loaded. I'm going to have the Jazz in the 15 seed. I just think like they're going to be the most exciting 15 seed. I said last year, I think I had Portland as my 15 seed, and obviously they definitely exceeded expectations going into the year. And they were, I was saying they're the most talented 15 seed ever on paper going into last year's season. I think the Jazz maybe a little bit worse than the Trailblazers on paper last year, given that there's so much unknown with their young core. But I think they're going to be the most exciting 15 seed. NBA needs expansion. We know that. There's too much talent in this league. I think the Phoenix Suns are probably a tier better than Utah. I don't think they're making the play next year. They definitely could, right? Like this team, you can make an argument the Suns got better this offseason, right? Like they traded away Kevin Durant for Dylan Brooks, for Jalen Green, and for Kaman Maliwatch. Like Kevin Durant is by far the best player in that package. But this team had so little depth last year that I think adding Brooks as a perimeter defender, what they need, adding Jalen Green, who still has great upside offensively and is still young. I don't know how it works with him and Devin Booker defensively in the backcourt, but you have Ryan Dunn, who was a great defender last year. You gave Devin Booker $75 million. They brought back Colin Gillespie. They brought in Nigel Hayes-Davis overseas, who can be an intriguing like balance piece, like on both ends. We'll see how he can be as a two-way player. They brought in Mark Williams. This is like probably the worst center core and group in the league last year. Now you have Mark Williams, Kaman Maliwatch, Nick Richards. I don't think any of those three guys are elite defenders next year. Kaman probably has the most upside defensively, but Mark Williams is a great athlete offensively. They bought out Bradley Beal. They lost Tyus Jones, Cody Martin, Vasily Micic, and Mason Plumlee. You still have creativity with Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal to make a trade. And this team wants to be good next year because they don't own their first round pick direction for a while. So I don't like this team clearly doesn't want to do a full teardown by any means. And that's why they didn't move Devin Booker this offseason. I mean, I'm not shocked if you're better than Sacramento or New Orleans next year, but I think, man, I don't know. Like they could end up being a 10 seed, for sure. Like they're a fringe playing team for sure. I kind of like Phoenix's roster, so I'm gonna actually put them in that tier with Memphis and Sacramento right now. I think the first team we're gonna have in the no play-in, but not the worst, the New Orleans Pelicans, which obviously makes it a little bit head scratching why they ended up trading away their pick. Something we've talked about at hand this offseason. They gave Herb Jones an extension. They traded away CJ McCollum and Kelly Olynyk for Sadiq Bey and Jordan Poole and allowed them to draft Micah Peavy. They brought in Kevon Mooney. I mean, this actually can rival the Suns from last year as the worst center group, but now they added Kevon Mooney, Derek Queen throughout the draft and free agency. They ended up losing Bruce Brown to the Nuggets. You have Jordan Hawkins. You have DeJounte Murray coming back midseason. You have Jeremiah Fears, who was just a top 10 pick. Jose Alvarado, a good backup point guard. Brandon Boston had his moments last year. And then obviously Zion Williamson, who when he's healthy can be a top 10 player in the league, I think. I still believe in that. He's so dominant offensively. He gets double teamed and he finishes around the rim. And if you surround him with shooters, I think it's great. I think there's a lot of talent on this roster. I just don't think it doesn't gel the best. And they were decimated by injuries last year. Decimated. This team was way more talented to be a 14 seed, but everybody got hurt. Everybody did. We saw Elfrid Payton play for this team last year. You saw Antonio Reeves have like a 30-point performance when he probably shouldn't have been like as impactful as a player last year for a team. So I think the Pelicans have a fun roster. I'd even mention Trey Murphy, who looked the part last year as a scorer as well. Like this is such a talented team. I don't know. Derek Queen already got hurt in summer league. I don't love DeJounte Murray as a player for what you need to rely on him on with the contract. I think the floor spacing can be intriguing around Zion with Poole and Trey Murphy. I just don't think Zion, Looney, or Misi or Derek Queen can all work out there together. There's too many non-shooters. I think Zion would have been better suited as a point guard. And maybe we see that. Maybe Zion's the point guard where it excelled in 2024. Maybe Jordan Poole's a shooting guard. Maybe Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are the 3 and the 4. And you can kind of rotate Yves Misi, Derek Queen out there, like 2 non-shooters that would be out there with Zion. I think that's probably the best suited thing. You have Jeremiah Fears. I think it's a talented roster. I don't think they're going to make the play-in, but I don't think they're going to be the 15 seed next year. But I do think out of all these teams, it's tough to figure out who's going to be the last seed that we're going to talk about. Or the 14 seed. Like you have to say it's probably going to be Sacramento, Phoenix, or New Orleans on paper to be the 14 seed. But it could end up being like, who knows? It could be the Mavericks or the Grizzlies or the Lakers, depending injuries, right? Like one of those teams can be unfortunate, be like a 2025 Pelicans and 2024 Memphis. All right. So this is actually going way longer than I thought. Last two teams we have here, I believe, are Portland and San Antonio. Yes, right. Portland and San Antonio. So Portland, I think, man, it's tough. I think they're also a fringe playing team, but I don't think that they're. It's just tough right now. So Portland just signed Damian Lillard. I think one of the best stories this offseason, but he's not playing next year. You go from Anthony Simons to Drew Holiday. That's an upgrade, right? They bought out DeAndre Ayton. I think Donovan Clingan, we'll see how he's going to look next year. Can he be consistently healthy for them? I don't know how much you're going to get from Yang Hansen next year, who is a project for sure. Robert Williams is a fine depth piece if he's still on this roster as well. They just signed Blake Wesley. Now, Denny Avdia broke out last year. Tamani Kamara broke out last year. There's so many different lineup variations this team can have. I think if you ask somebody like, what is the Blazers starting lineup next year? Everybody would give you a different answer. I think you have to start Scoot Henderson. From where he was drafted, the pedigree he has, you got to start him. Now, I think I still believe more in Scoot than Sharp ceiling-wise, but Sharp also has an exceptionally high ceiling. So I think right now what I would do is Scoot and Sharp in the backcourt because I trust Sharp's shot. And then you definitely are starting Denny, and you got to start Clingan right now. Now, so I think it comes down between Drew, Kamara, and Jeremy Grant. It's tough, man. I think you need a little bit more shooting out there as well. That's why I like Jeremy Grant as a player. Do I like him for $30 million? No. But I think Grant could be a good player. I love Drew, but I think I'm okay with Drew coming off the bench. I am. So I think I would start either Kamara or Grant with Drew coming off the bench, which provides so much depth on this team. Ryan Repair looked the part in Summer League. Probably not going to see much from Chris Murray again, just given the depth this team has. But you have Matisse Thybulle defensively. It's a good roster, man. I do think they're a fringe playing team, but probably not top 8. It's just like, I would love for you guys in the YouTube comments or the Spotify comments, or let me know on Twitter, between the Grizzlies, Kings, Suns, and Blazers, who do you think could end up being like the 14th seed out of those, or 13th seed? Because one of them is. I think it's probably more likely it's Sacramento or Phoenix, if I had to guess. And then lastly, San Antonio. I think they're a fringe top 6 seed or play-in. I'm a little bit lower on San Antonio next year than everybody else is. I'm not totally convinced Stephon Castle is going to be a top 50 player next year. Now, he was the best rookie last year. He looked great defensively. He's not going to be able to have as many shots per game than he did, which may help the efficiency. If he worked a shot and could become a better three-point shooter, the Spurs got a phenomenal talent complementary piece at number 4 to Wemby and Fox going forward. They're adding the second best player in the draft in Dylan Harper. They added Kelly Olynyk, which I love. They brought in Luke Cornett, and they have some good big man depth behind Wemby. Something was a little volatile for them last year. They just signed Lindy Waters. They re-signed Jordan McLaughlin. Chris Paul is gone, but that's fine. You were able to keep Devin Vassell. You were able to keep Keldon Johnson and Jeremy Showen this offseason. I think they got to sign Riley Minix. They just gave David Jones a contract, who was a star from Summer League. Carter Bryant was such a defensive beast last year. And they have Harrison Barnes. Like, they have still some veterans on this team. I mean, they're a great roster for sure. I do think I want to see it on hand, because even with Wemby healthy last year, and Wemby looking like a top 10 player in the league, they weren't like a dominant part of the Western Conference. But hey, now you have a full season of Fox. You're adding Dylan Harper, and nobody's super major lost. Like, Malachi Branham was not a great defender. I think it's kind of addition by subtraction on that end of the floor. Like, Carter Bryant fits this team a lot better than Malachi Branham. So I think, though, I would be very shocked if they made it to the conference finals. Hey, that is like, Wemby's an MVP candidate. Fox's three-point shot comes back a little bit. Stephon Castle takes a little bit of a leap offensively, and one of Jeremy Showen, Vassell, or Keldon Johnson gets significantly better next year, or Carter Bryant, who I think, I wouldn't be shocked if the Spurs made the playoffs and Carter Bryant wasn't in the playoff rotation, because I think it's going to take a little bit of time for him, but I love his ceiling, ideally around Wemby. So I think that they are a team that could end up being a 5 or 6 seed, but I think that's their peak. I think they're more likely going to be a 7 or 8 seed, but a good one. Like, hey, the 7th or 8th seed could be 46 and 36. That's a good year in this Western Conference. I'm giving a lot of respect to teams that are the 7th, 8th, 9th seed if they're 46 and 36 in the West, for sure, given the competition at hand. So, all right, funny enough, I see this is why doing this on the spot's always fun. I have the Golden State Warriors. I was like, all right, let me count this before I ended it. Actually did the outro and everything, and I got the Warriors left. So I think the Warriors, oh man, I think they're a fringe top 6 or a playing tournament team as well. I don't like, so right now, as I'm recording this, they haven't signed D'Anthony Melton or Al Horford, but all signs are pointing to that happening. Who knows what's happening with Jonathan Kuminga, but they were one of the best teams in the West after the Jimmy Butler trade. They did not have a first round pick. They drafted Alex Tui and Elijah Martin, Alex Tui and Will Richard. I like Richard a little bit more. I don't know how much of an impact players are going to be. They're asking a lot, I think, out of an older roster of Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond. Now, I do think if Steph gets hurt, this team is going to be very bad next year without Steph, because Steph was on another level after the Jimmy trade. I would say, oh man, I do think they're going to be a fringe top 6 seed or a play-in team. I just still trust Steph, Jimmy, what I saw in the second half last year. And if they add Al Horford, because now we would have big man depth, even after looning like Trey Jackson-Davis, Quinn Post, Al Horford, and potentially Draymond at small ball. Like, that's not the worst center core. It's asking a lot out of a 39-year-old Al Horford, right? But now I have like 4 guys that I could trust as my center in some way, shape, or form. They would have still flexibility in a trade. You have Moody, you have Podziemski. If they could somehow get Kobe White or somebody impactful like a Keegan Murray in a Kuminga trade, I'd love that for them. They have draft capital to make a trade. I just can't see Mike Dunleavy being like, okay, if this team is around 500 at the deadline, to not be aggressive if Jimmy and Steph are healthy in the second half. I do think out of like the Lakers, I just don't think this roster will win the finals next year, but I do think they'll be competitive enough where they can at least be in the play-in tournament talks or a top 6 seed. So I know I have like, I have 9 teams, either fringe top 6 or better, but if I had to drop one, it's tough between the Lakers, the Warriors, the Mavericks, and the Spurs. I'd probably drop Golden State right now or Dallas. It's tough. I definitely think the Lakers are the best team or the safest team out of these 4, but I just think the Western Conference is loaded. And to recap, I have the Thunder, the Nuggets, the Rockets in tier 1, the Clippers and Timberwolves in tier 2, but I'm very torn on putting the Clippers in tier 1. I just think 4 tier 1 West teams, I don't know. I think you can maybe even just drop Denver, Houston. You can have like 5 teams in frisky Western Conference Finals and OKC in their own tier. But I do think Denver and Houston are very good. I have the Lakers, the Warriors, the Spurs, and the Mavericks in fringe top 6 seed or play-in. I have fringe play-in, but probably not top 8. So tier number 4 between Memphis, Portland, Sacramento, and Phoenix. They could end up being a 10 seed or a 9 seed. But I think there's a 0% chance they make it out of the play-in if all these teams were healthy. And I think a more likelihood they could end up being like 13 than they would be at 8. Not the play-in, but not the 15 seed, the Pelicans, and 15 seed contention. I do have the Utah Jazz because I think the Jazz are okay with that, and they're on a far different timeline than everybody else. So that is going to be it for me. Hope you guys did enjoy this episode of the Just Ballin' Podcast. If you did, I would appreciate you leaving a like on YouTube, hit a rating or follow button, leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Really helps the podcast grow on the audio platforms. You guys can let me know what you guys think also about the tier list. It is very top. The West is loaded. It's going to be a very interesting conversation for the East episode, so make sure to be on the lookout for that because that will be coming out over the next few days as well. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.